My name is Hung, a second-year student at a university in Hanoi. That year I was just 20. Life in the city was not to be blamed, noisy, bustling, and full, but my heart was always filled with an unnamed sadness, something that had not been closed. An invisible thread still tied me to the past, and that place was my hometown. My village was hidden behind 3 hills and an old forest. There were no buses, no trains, and no straight asphalt roads like in the city. There were only winding red dirt roads, muddy when it rained and dusty when it was sunny. I had left there for more than a year, but not a day went by that I did not miss it. And most of all, I missed My was my lover. We grew up together, went to school together, sneaked out of the house to play in the stream, held hands under the dense forest canopy at the beginning of the village. Young love, simple but passionate. Before the day I left the village for Hanoi, she held my hand, her eyes filled with tears, choking. "You're gone. Don't forget me." I smiled, stroked her hair, and whispered, "You are the reason I have to succeed to return. Wait for me." But for a whole year, I did not receive a single letter or message. I sent her letters several times, but there was absolutely no response. I called my parents to ask, but they only avoided me. When I asked about my mother changed the subject, and my father cleared his throat and said curtly, "Focus on your studies, my child. Let the adults take care of the village matters." Those answers only made me more uneasy. I knew something had happened. One day in early winter, after a mild fever of unknown origin, I woke up in the middle of the night with a haunting nightmare. In my dream, I saw Mai standing in the middle of the forest at the entrance to the village, her eyes wide open, her face pale as a drowning person. She said nothing, just reached out to me, her mouth moving but not making a sound. I woke up, my whole body cold. At that moment, I knew it was time for me to return. I left Hanoi on a gray early morning, carrying a light backpack, my heart heavy. The bus only took me to a small town more than 10 kilometers from my village. From there, I had to walk. The old path in my hometown had not changed much. There were still rows of curved bamboo, wild reeds, the dry stream running across the foot of the mountain, and the dense, gloomy forest at the entrance to the village, reeking with the smell of mold and rotten leaves. The wind blew from the forest, cold and pungent with a fishy smell, as if something was decomposing. It was already afternoon, the clouds were thick, the light was dim. I tried to walk as fast as I could, my heart pounding as if someone was urging me. Suddenly I stopped. Among the tall trees standing silently like stone statues, there was a figure standing looking at me. It was Mai. She was wearing a light blue sweater, the one I had given her before leaving the village. Her long hair fell down, covering almost half of her face. In the dim light, I couldn't see her expression clearly, but I recognized those eyes, the eyes that I would never forget for the rest of my life. "Mai!" I exclaimed, choking. She didn't say anything. She just tilted her head slightly, then turned and walked deeper into the forest. Without a single doubt, I rushed after her. I don't remember how far I went. The further I went, the darker it became. The wind blew harder, the dry branches rubbing against each other made a creepy sound. But I still followed that figure, appearing and disappearing as if it were melting into the mist. Finally, she stopped in front of a dilapidated hut, standing alone at the edge of the forest where the villagers used to guard the rice fields from wild animals. It had been a long time since I had seen it. The thatched roof was rotten, the bamboo walls were dark with time, the wooden door was crooked as if it was about to collapse. She turned to look at me, speaking for the first time. "It's almost dark. Stay here with me tonight. Come back tomorrow." I was stunned. Something was wrong, but the joy of seeing her again made it impossible for me to refuse. I nodded. The inside of the hut was dark. She lit a small oil lamp. The weak yellow light was just enough to illuminate her pale face. The smell of mold and rotten wood filled my nose. I sat down on the old mat, unable to help but feel a chill down my spine. Where have you been all this time? Why haven't you contacted me? She was silent, then sighed, softly said, "Many things have changed, Hung. There are things that cannot be said." I wanted to ask more, but there was something in her eyes that made me choke. A sadness so deep, so far away, as if it no longer belonged to this world. We sat together in silence. There was only the sound of the wind whistling through the cracks in the wall and the pounding sound of my heart. Then I realized she had no shadow under the light. I swallowed hard. Countless questions rang in my head. Who was I meeting? Was this really or was I dreaming? But I felt her presence, her breath, her voice, though weak, was still my. Around midnight, a strange noise rang out outside. Rustle, rustle, clack, growl. A light scratching sound on the wall, the sound of something moving slowly around the hut. Then a heavy breath. I stood up. There's something out there. She looked at me, eyes wide, her voice whispering, "Don't open the door. Don't go out." I swallowed. The strong wind made the door shake violently. I pressed my ear to the wall and heard people laughing, but it was dry, distorted, and breathless. I looked out the crack. Something was standing there, a human figure hunched over, two long arms touching the ground, head tilted, hair tangled like tree roots. It stood still, but I could feel it looking at me through the bamboo, through my heart. I backed away. My body was cold. Mai stood in front of me, her face full of pain. "I won't let it touch you." I didn't understand what was happening. I huddled in the corner, holding my head, my heart pounding like it was about to burst. The oil lamp flickered, then went out. Darkness swallowed everything. In the darkness, I saw eyes lurking around the hut. They weren't human. They couldn't be human. Something had been following me since I entered the forest. At one point, I felt someone standing right behind me, a cold breath on the back of my neck. But when I turned around, there was nothing. I didn't see anyone but Mao, but I knew they were there. I don't remember when I fell asleep. It was only when I heard the sound of a rooster crowing in the distance, a familiar sound that I had thought was normal, that I woke up. The dim light of the early morning filtered through the wall. I looked around. Mai was gone. Not a trace. I slowly walked out of the hut. The morning light was like something unfamiliar. The early morning wind was cold and damp, carrying the pungent scent of the old forest and the lonely call of birds. It was already morning, but my heart was still immersed in darkness. Mai had disappeared. Not a word of goodbye, not a trace. I stood there for a long time. My legs were numb, my mind was hazy as if I had not yet woken up. The hut was still the same as last night, empty, cold, without any trace of human presence. No different from a place abandoned for decades, and I stood there like a person lost in my own memories. But I knew what I had experienced was real. Mai was there. She had hugged me, she had talked to me, she had protected me from something in the darkness. I turned my head to look back at the forest with dense canopy that seemed to want to swallow the sky. At this moment, I suddenly realized that last night I almost didn't live to return. I returned to the village when the sun was high in the sky. My whole body was exhausted, like someone who had just returned from the dead. The gate of the house was still old. The walls were peeling off in pieces. The roof was covered with green moss. The old dog lying under the areca tree jumped up and barked loudly when it saw me. My mother walked out to the front of the porch, still holding the basket that was drying vegetables. She was stunned when she saw me. "Hung?" I nodded, saying nothing. She dropped the basket of vegetables, ran over and hugged me. Her warmth almost made me cry. It took me a long time to say out loud, "I came back for Mai." My mother's arms stopped. She let go of me, her eyes confused. Her lips moved, but she couldn't say a word. I looked into her eyes as if searching for a truth that I had guessed for a long time, but had never dared to face. "Mai is dead, right, Mom?" She was silent. The air suddenly became thick. There was only the sound of the wind rustling through the dry banana leaves. A moment later, my father walked out of the house, his face pensive. He looked at me, then nodded slightly. "Yes, it's been almost a year since she died." I couldn't stand still. My heart felt like someone was squeezing it. "Why? Why didn't anyone tell you?" My father didn't answer right away. He looked far away into the forest. "There are things that are not easy to say and not easy to believe." I sat down on the ground. My hands clasped each other tightly. Memories of last night came flooding back like a flood. Mai's eyes, her voice, her warmth, her sadness, her smile, the creepy scratching sound outside the wall, and even her eyes in the dark. I asked, "Why did she die?" My mother didn't answer. She quietly went into the house. Only my father sat down beside me, his voice hoarse. "Mai died just over a week after you left. She went to the edge of the forest to pick mushrooms and never came back." "Did anyone find her body?" "Yes. A few days later, people found her in a stream at the foot of the hill. Her whole body was purple. Her eyes were rolled back. Her mouth was full of mud. Her body seemed twisted, not like someone who drowned." My spine shivered. "They said it was an accident, but the villagers didn't think so." I choked up. "So, what's going on?" My father looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "A few days before, she and her mother had a big argument. Her mother forbade her from seeing you off. She said our family was not a good match and that our ancestors had a fate of killing their wives. It was a very old story, but she believed it very much. The day you left, she saw you off and then got beaten up when she got home. That very night, she left. Then she disappeared." I was speechless. It turns out that behind Mai's silence was pain and suffering. She didn't leave me. She was forbidden, beaten, and then disappeared in a lonely despair. My tears welled up. "Mai committed suicide, Dad?" He shook his head. "No one knows. But the villagers said she was called away by the forest." I turned around. "What?" My father looked at me, then sighed. "That edge of the forest used to be the burial place for those who died young and unjustly. Later, there were many strange disappearances. Anyone who passed by alone in the evening would have trouble. Some people screamed and ran away. Some had a fever for days. Some people never returned. The villagers called it the land possessed by ghosts." My spine shivered. "Mai died there?" "Yes. People said her soul could not be released. It kept wandering around the old hut. Someone who went into the forest also said that he saw a long-haired girl wearing a blue sweater, standing in the middle of the forest calling someone's name." My heart stopped for a beat. "Dad, I met her. Last night. In that very hut." My father was startled, his eyes filled with fear. "You slept in the forest?" I nodded. My father didn't say anything, but I saw his hand tremble. Then he squeezed my shoulder. "Once you're back, don't come back there again. Do you hear? Don't call its name again after dark. There are things that are no longer human, even though they were once the people you loved." That night I curled up in my old room. The smell of lime on the walls, the smell of old mats, the smell of long-suffering kitchen smoke made me feel like I was reliving my childhood years. But something had changed forever. I closed my eyes but couldn't sleep. In my mind was Mai's face, half human, half illusory. It was her figure sitting by the flickering oil lamp, her long hair covering half her face, the warmth when she hugged me, the trembling words, "I won't let it touch you." I realized that Mai had come back to protect me, even though she was no longer alive. Maybe because I was the only thing she had. Maybe she was still waiting for me to come back, as she promised, even though she was only a soul. The next morning, I went to the edge of the forest. I didn't go deeper, knowing that my parents would never forgive me if I took the risk again. I just stood there looking into the dense forest shadows where the sunlight couldn't penetrate. I muttered under my breath as an apology, I'm back. But it's too late. Please forgive me. The wind blew hard. The leaves of the forest rustled, making a sound like someone sighing. No one answered me, but I know she heard, and maybe smiled. Since that day, I was no longer the carefree person I used to be. The haunting memory of the night in the forest, and her cold eyes as she turned away before the rooster crowed, all haunted me like a ghost in my mind. But what made me uneasy was the silence of the adults in the village. They knew something, I was sure of it, but they all avoided me when I asked about even my father, as if the whole village was keeping a secret that had rotted through generations, and I was the one who touched it. On Sunday morning, I went down to the village market. Under the tattered thatched roof, buyers and sellers were bustling about. The smell of dried fish, charcoal, and even rice wine made me dizzy. I didn't intend to buy anything. I was just looking for forgotten stories. I stopped at a stall selling cigarettes and dried tea. The old woman selling the stall had almost all her teeth missing. Her eyes were cloudy as if covered in mist. I asked quietly, "Do you know how Mrs. Sue's daughter died?" The old lady looked up, staring at me. "Another one who wants to die." I was startled. "Why do you say that?" "I won't say it, but the place you just mentioned, it's tainted with a blood oath. Whoever enters, someone follows out. Did you see that you were alone?" My face paled. "What do you mean?" "The first night I returned to the village, did you hear footsteps behind you? Did you hear breathing close to your neck? Or did you think it was just the wind?" The old lady suddenly sniffed, then turned away. I stood there, frozen. That night I had heard it, breathing, footsteps, and a shadow gliding behind me. Could it be that I had been marked by something? That afternoon I went to the cemetery behind the village where the villagers buried their dead. It was a small plot of land located between bamboo forests and burnt grass hillsides with no clear path and grass growing up to my waist. I searched for a long time before I found Mai's grave, an old wooden stele. The letters all faded, only the 3 clearest words remaining, Nguyen Thi Mi. Below, the ground had sunk. Grass did not grow there, as if the ground there was still breathing. While I was bending down, I heard a light cough behind me. I turned around in surprise. A skinny old man wearing a torn hat, leaning on a bamboo stick, was standing behind me. "Is that the girl's grave?" I nodded. The old man slowly approached, looked at the tombstone, and said, "You are Hung, right? He used to mention you a lot back then. Bright eyes, good at studying, gentle face. The girl loved you very much." I swallowed, trying to stay calm. "Do you know what happened to Mai?" He looked at me for a long time, then said, "If you know, you know. But if I tell you, I'm afraid I can't save you anymore." I grabbed his hand. "Please, I need to know. I met her in the forest. She's still there." He nodded slowly. "Then you're stuck." "Stuck with what?" "Stuck with a vengeful spirit." My spine shivered. He looked into the distant forest. "Do you know what the place where you met her used to be?" "It was a hanging ground." "What?" During the French colonial period, the French soldiers set up a small execution ground on the edge of the village. Anyone suspected of being Viet Minh was hanged without trial. Many people were arrested, many were wrongly accused, and died. Later, the government cleared it away, but no one dared to plow that land. The villagers whispered that it was the Hung Neck Forest. So, why did Mai go there? The girl didn't go by herself. She was taken. Who? A woman in mourning clothes, her hair covering her face. She only appeared when it was about to rain, guiding the suffering people. The girl followed, walked forever, and then never came back. I felt my heart stop beating. "And last night, Mai said she was protecting you from something." "What?" The old man turned to me, his eyes deep. There are two types of ghosts in the forest. One is a vengeful spirit that is not evil, but suffering, held back by memories. The other is a chaotic ghost that is the dark side of unjust deaths, swallowed by the forest, becoming something that no longer has humanity. Mai is a vengeful spirit? Yes, but if you stay there a few more nights, you will be taken away. Maybe even Mai herself cannot stop it, because the other group was much stronger. I asked quietly, "So, is there any way to free Mai?" The old man was silent for a long time, then said, "Yes, but it's not easy. We have to find the sacrificial object that she brought with her when she died, to keep her soul. Take it out of the forest, burn it on the first night, and bury the ashes under the ancient Bodhi tree in front of the village temple. Only then will the soul be liberated." I was shocked. "That object, what is it?" "It must be her lover who finds it. No one else can see it." That night I tossed and turned all night. The old man's words echoed in my head like a funeral bell. I knew I couldn't leave Mai alone. She died of pain, because of love. And if it weren't for her, I wouldn't be alive today. Near midnight, I grabbed a flashlight, put on a jacket, and quietly left the house. The forest was pitch black. I walked back down the old path that led to the hut where I had lived with Mai. The wind howled like the call of the dead. Every step felt like stepping into a graveyard. The tree roots twisted like dead hands trying to grab my ankles. Finally, I reached the hut. It was still the same old, cold, empty. But when I pushed the door open, something had changed. On the ground, among the straw and dry leaves, was a blue woolen scarf. I was stunned. It was the scarf that Mai used to wear every winter, the scarf I gave her my senior year. Why was it here? I bent down to pick it up. The scarf still had the faint scent of lavender that Mai used to wear. But as I stood up, bam! The back door of the hut opened. A cold wind blew across my face. My flashlight went out, and then I heard footsteps, slow, dragging, very close. A white shadow passed through the crack in the door. I tried not to breathe, my heart pounding in my chest. Then a familiar voice rang out, as if from the bottom of the grave. "You are here." "It's Mai." I turned around. In front of me was Mai, in an old, worn white dress, her long, wet hair covering most of her face. Her eyes were red, but still the same gentle and tearful eyes. I wanted to hug her, but my legs couldn't move. She raised her hand, pointing at the towel in my hand. "That's the string that binds me. Burn it if you still love me, but I will disappear. No, I will return to where I belong. I'm in so much pain, Hung." Tears welled up in my eyes. "I'm sorry I didn't come back sooner." She smiled the saddest smile I'd ever seen. Then suddenly the whole hut shook. A long, sharp screech came from outside, like fingernails scratching on stone. Mai suddenly looked at me in panic. "Go! It's here! Don't let it see you!" I turned around and ran out, running as fast as I could. Behind me I heard screams coming from the bottom of hell. I didn't dare to turn back. I just ran like a madman. When I got home, it was almost dawn. I hugged the scarf to my chest. My heart clenched. I knew that if I kept it, Mai would be imprisoned forever. I took a tin, stuffed the scarf in it, poured oil, and lit it. The fire flared up, blue like Mai's eyes. The pungent smell of burning fabric made me choke. The ashes hadn't cooled yet, but I brought them to the village temple and buried them under the Bodhi tree, as the old man had told me. I didn't know if it was enough, but I did everything for her. That night in my dream, I saw Mai standing by the forest under the cold moonlight. She said nothing, just smiled, then turned away, her figure as light as smoke, disappearing into the dark trees. I called, but she did not turn back. Only the wind whispered in my ear, "I am free now, Hung. Don't be sad." 3 years have passed since the night I burned the blue wool scarf amidst the howling wind from the late night forest and buried the ashes under the Bodhi tree of the village temple. The old village was still peaceful, the forest still whispered every night, but since then I have not seen any white shadow again. No more breathing near the nape of the neck, no more nightmares from hell, and the girl I loved, has not appeared in my dreams anymore. I think she has truly transcended. I returned to the city, finished university, graduated, and became a lecturer in a small college. The world was spinning, people came and went. As for me, still lonely with the shadow of the girl from years ago, still not opening my heart, still unable to love anyone else. Until one day, she came in the fall on the first day of the new semester. I walked into the classroom, still reading the names of students taking attendance when I caught her eyes. That look, it seemed to pull me back 3 years ago, to the hut by the forest where the girl in the white dress whispered, "I'm still waiting for you." Her name was Lan. The girl had eyes as sparkling as dewdrops, a voice as gentle as the wind, and a strange maturity beyond her 18 years. She always sat quietly at the back of the class, not talking much, not standing out, but always remembering every word I taught, every letter on the board. One day when I accidentally asked the class, "In Eastern culture, what do you think about reincarnation and past life memories?" The whole class was silent. Only Lan slowly spoke. "I think if there is a next life, people will go looking for an unfinished memory, an unfulfilled promise, a look that they haven't had time to say goodbye." I was speechless, because that was what Mai had said to me on the first night I met her at the edge of the forest. That night I dreamed of Mai, but she wasn't standing in the forest like usual. She was standing in the middle of a modern street with glass buildings, noisy traffic, neon lights shining on her radiant face. She wasn't wearing a white shirt, but a student uniform. She looked at me, smiling. "I'm back. I'll find you myself in this life." I woke up. My heart was pounding. Lan, it was her. From then on, I started to pay more attention. I saw that Lan was very afraid of the forest, afraid of the dark, and absolutely never wore a scarf, even on cold winter days. Once I accidentally put a blue wool scarf on her desk, she immediately stepped back, her eyes wild for a moment. I asked, "What's wrong?" Lan replied, whispering, "I don't know. I hate the color blue. Every time I see that color, I feel like I'm being pulled back into a dark place where there's no way out." She didn't remember her past life, but her subconscious did. I didn't say anything. I just stayed by her side, silently watching, like someone who owed her a lifetime and hadn't paid back. One night in early winter, Lan came to see me. Her face was pale, her eyes were red. "Teacher, I dreamed of a place with bamboo trees, a thatched house, and with you." I called out, but you didn't turn back. She took my hand for the first time, taking the initiative. "Teacher, do you believe in past lives? I think I once waited for someone for a long time in a very cold and sad place." I didn't answer. I hugged her. Tears silently flowed. "Teacher, I believe, and I once waited for you too." Not long after that, Lan gradually recovered her memories little by little. Pieces from her dreams, from invisible memories, gradually formed in her like her old soul blooming again. She was no longer afraid of the forest, no longer afraid of the night. We returned to the village that year, walking on the old trail through the forest where she had lost her way in her previous life. The tree where the ashes of the woolen scarf were buried now bloomed. Lan gently stroked the tree trunk, her eyes filled with tears. "I remember everything. Hung in this life. I will not let anyone forbid, will not let anyone stop us anymore." I hugged her, saying nothing. We had won. Not the devil, not death, but fate. That year we got married. No ceremony, no fuss. Just the two of us, standing in front of the Bodhi tree, swearing to each other under the windless afternoon sky. No need for anyone to witness, because the earth, the sky, the soul, and time itself all know we belong to each other. Even if we have to go through darkness, death, and oblivion, that love will still return forever. Thank you for listening to today's story. This is the YouTube channel Vietnamese Ghost Stories. If you like my stories, please give me a subscription and a little motivation so that I can continue to find stories for everyone to listen to. Goodbye and see you again in the next stories.